Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I'm Hina Gambhir. At 8 p.m., our focus is battle between Elon Musk and Twitter. At 4:53 p.m. India time on 14th of April, a tweet by world's richest man, Elon Musk, caused a stir. His tweet was, "I made an offer," and there was an attachment. It was the announcement of offer by Tesla boss to buy microblogging site Twitter. And since then, 396.5 million Twitter users across the world have a few questions. One, why does Elon Musk want to buy Twitter? What will happen to this platform if he buys it? Given Twitter's role in reshaping news and political agenda around the world, who owns it becomes very, very important. And it has already triggered freedom of speech debate around the world, as he identifies himself as free speech absolutist. Earlier this month, the world got to know that Elon Musk is Twitter's largest individual shareholder, with over 9% stake in the company. Soon after that, in his own antic style, he tweeted ideas for revamping Twitter. One suggestion was about removing advertising from Twitter's premium service. He even refused Twitter board's seat. Maybe he had some other major plans for the microblogging site. So what is actually going on in the mind of Elon Musk? Let's ask our social media expert, Raksha, joining us on the broadcast for more on this. Raksha, good evening. So what exactly is going on in the mind of Elon Musk? What is the big plan?
Hi, Hina. Thanks for that. Yes, there are a lot of speculations across Twitter, across Reddit. Everybody's talking about the world's richest maverick billionaire, a cryptocurrency crusader, an avid Twitter user himself, who said he's made a fair and final offer in a very Warren Buffett, playbook style, saying this is it. And we are trying to understand right now that what he actually means when he says that he wants to buy Twitter, and why is he saying he wants to buy Twitter. Now, Musk is somebody who has been actively tweeting for a very long time with almost 82 million followers himself. At times he says Twitter rocks in 2019, and in a 2020 tweet he says, Twitter is absolute nonsense, or that it sucks. And I want to say that Jack Dorsey himself had once tweeted that if there is one Twitter influencer or Twitter user on his platform that he really respects, is Elon Musk, because he shares his views very openly. And this itself, Hina, is the very cornerstone of Elon Musk's bid to buy Twitter, where he claims that I am crusading for free speech. In fact, in an earlier interview, he was once quoted saying, free speech is if someone you don't like is allowed to say something that you don't like. And if this is what he wants, as you earlier said, that he fashions himself as a free speech absolutist, and he was earlier quoted saying exactly this. He has been conducting polls on Twitter, asking the users themselves, giving them the option to actually share their views about whether they think Twitter is a free speech platform. Going forward, if I want to share something extra with you, Hina, we are talking about the same guy who, of course, pondered over the meaning of life in, while sipping whiskey and smoking marijuana. So everybody is saying, maybe he's just doing this for attention. But is he really? Maybe he's really trying to make a point and trying to change Twitter. So let's delve into what Musk's version 2.0 of Twitter is going to be like. Apart from what we've already understood, that he's going to be converting this platform into a free speech, fair platform. Apart from that, with some graphics that we've pulled up on the screen for you, we could have a customized Twitter news feed, which means that when you're on the platform and you're scrolling past all the tweets that are coming in, maybe you'll get the option of choosing what topics you want to see tweets on. The second thing could be filters for trigger warnings. Musk has earlier also shared in some of his tweets, and so have a lot of other Twitter influencers, that There are lots of tweets which are around topics which are a little toxic, which people do not want to see in their everyday, say, sort of commute to work, for example. And, if there's a trigger warning, such as maybe something is violent, something is gory, something is around warnings such as, triggers such as suicide or rape, and they don't want to see it. So there could be an option to filter these messages out, to sort of weed out the toxicity from the platform itself. The other thing is Twitter may become a paid platform. There could be a Twitter premium subscription, which from which actually Musk tweeted saying he might take out ads from it, and that can be a big hit for the revenue. But if he said it, then maybe that is what he wants to do. Moving on to the next point. Twitter Blue, the verification, right? It's almost like an online Twitter, sort of like a caste system of sorts, where some people get verified, some people don't, and some people are trying to use the new Twitter Blue feature, which is a desktop-only feature, to get themselves verified. But that is not happening either. So maybe there will be a better and a more efficient Twitter Blue verification system, which will be accessible to all. There is a tweet by Musk where he also said he might even move to a new social media platform, because he had asked users that if there is no free speech on this platform, should we start a new platform? But given Donald Trump's cautionary tale of Trump social, maybe Musk will not do that. But speaking of Donald Trump, we can also only assume that what about the suspended users such as Donald Trump, who were suspended from Twitter? Will they be allowed to return? So I think these are things that Twitter users are thinking about and talking about across Twitter, across Reddit, across the internet. And from what we understand, to give credit where it's due, maybe this is a move where he's trying to bring Twitter to heel.
Okay, interesting points you've raised, Raksha. We'll, of course, be coming back to you in just a bit. But let me also go across to my guest joining us on the broadcast this evening. We have Mahesh Murthy, venture capitalist and head Pinstrom, joining us this evening. Arvind Gupta, head Digital India Foundation, also live with us. Joyjeet Pal, associate professor of Information, School of Information, Michigan University, joining us on the broadcast live. And S. Napinai, digital rights expert, also with us on Urban Debate this evening. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. Good to have you all on the show today. Mahesh Murthy, let me begin the discussion with you. Everyone's talking about it. At least 396 million Twitter users that are there across the world. They all want to know, why on earth would Elon Musk want to buy Twitter? Because just a couple of days back, we got to know that he holds over 9% stake in Twitter already. He's the largest independent shareholder.
Okay, I'm not Elon, but I will give you my personal point of view on this. Look, even if when he pays 42 billion, it's a rounding error for him, right? He's probably worth $500 billion right now. If you take SpaceX and everything else, he's probably well on his way to being a trillionaire. So it's a rounding error. He's not in it for the money. I think what he's very clear about, and if you look at the background, he actually said no to a seat on the board because as part of joining the board, he had to agree to behave in the way that the board would, in the way the board set norms. Earlier, he was, I think, Raksha didn't cover this, but he had a huge run-in with the SEC that said that I'm going to control what you can tweet. His basic point is, you can't tell me what I can say, you can't tell me what I can't say, and not just me, you can't tell anybody what they can and cannot say. So he's essentially out there saying, I want to remove censorship from this platform. It doesn't mean that if I say something obnoxious, you will have to hear it. You have the right to block me, right? So it's quite the opposite. You have a right to speak. You may not have a right to be heard. So I think it's as far as I look at it, he's out there saying, look, it's a small amount of money for me, and if I can create one free platform worldwide and take all this SEC nonsense out, this political wokeness out, get all this censorship out, let people listen to what they want and what they don't. That's really what it's about. He's out there saying, this is the way to look at it is he's out there trying to change the world. He's saying, look, I want to make Earth multiplanetary, humanity multiplanetary. I want to set humanity free of political correctness, wokeness. I want to set Twitter and other places free of advertising pressure. You know how Facebook caves into advertising pressure and does all that crap. I said, and he's out there saying, he's not even on Facebook. He's saying, I'm going to take all that crap out and make it a pure platform. As far as money, he says Twitter has enough. If I charge, $1, etc., 400 million people, a lot of them will pay like a buck a year or $3 a year to get a basic service. And that's perfectly fine. We don't need advertising. So his plan is very clearly to create a pure, clean vehicle for people to get to get their voices out there. And I personally think it's a pretty good deal. It's a big cocking a snoop at every single politically correct person out there, every woke person out there, all the committees that say you can't say this, you can't say this, saying, hey, it's a free world. And that's really what he's doing. So I think it's really interesting from that point of view. That's my personal take on what's happening.
Interesting. So you believe that his idea probably is to create pure, clean vehicle for people to be able to freely express themselves, to be able to say what they want to say. We'll, of course, talk about the issue of free speech that is now being discussed as well in just a bit. But before that, let me take the opening comments from Joyjeet Pal as well. Professor Pal, what is your opinion? Why do you think Elon Musk now wants to buy Twitter, given the kind of tweets that he has been putting out and the kind of following that he has as we speak?
Well, I think it's because it's a win-win situation for him. Whether he gets Twitter or not, he gets a bunch of publicity. And I absolutely disagree that this is just a rounding error in terms of money, because in a typical hostile bid, you have to say where you're going to get the money from. And if he's going to sell his Tesla stock to get the money, that's not going to be fun for the people in Tesla. And already the employees in Twitter have said they're not happy about him taking over Twitter. So his plan B might very well be to wait for the board to reject his offer and then go and sell. So my short answer would be, if you're holding on to Twitter stock, you should probably consider selling at this point. What he does with this is an open question. He does a lot of things for fun. And, the 54.20, like your earlier commentator said, the reference to marijuana, which is 420, the guy essentially put 20 cents extra over there, which is $150 million extra, just for the sake of having the fun of having a 420 in the number. So it's clear to me that he does things for effect. And if he wins Twitter, yeah, there'll be huge changes there, but more likely he's already won the publicity battle.
Okay. Arvind Gupta, do you also believe that it's only for publicity, for attention, as being said in international media as well? There have been so many articles written already in the last 24 hours suggesting that this is nothing but a publicity stunt. Elon Musk only wants attention, and that's the reason why this offer has been made.
Now, Hina, nothing could be far from the truth. I mean, as the way I read it, as I see it, I don't think so Elon Musk needs publicity. And Elon Musk, I do agree with Professor Pal that it is not pocket change. Mahesh, I think the biggest thing that he will have to really come out is with a financing plan to finance this $42 billion. But this is not a publicity game. That's where I disagree with if anybody says Elon Musk doesn't need publicity. He's doing enough in his life. And I truly believe he's an innovator, he's been making shots at the biggest social media companies, whether it may be the Facebook conglomerate, the Meta conglomerate, or even Twitter. So I think he really feels he can reform this, and it's a time for reset. And the reset has been set in motion with Jack Dorsey leaving. And he believes he can be that player who can help Twitter reset, because he has been two things which are very close to him, apart from his Tesla and SpaceX ventures, is free speech, which he has a clear definition of. Even in the Russia-Ukraine war, when he was asked to throttle internet in Russia, he clearly said no to that. And secondly, has been his whole issue of fake news. And he wants to really, settle, create a platform which can have clearly good information, but also personal views, user-generated content, the way it's supposed to be. So, in summary, basically, it's not pocket change. He's going to have a tough time financing it. It's going to, it's probably a hostile situation. Secondly, it's, I think there is a way that he's trying to reset the platform. Twitter is really ripe for a reset. As I said, it's ripe for fresh ideas. And he's a maverick in that. He conducted polls on edit buttons, on what features should go, how Twitter should be using it. He has strong views on whether people should be really working the way they're working. So I think it's time for a reset. Whether he wins this bid or not, Twitter will definitely be Twitter 2.0 with or without Elon Musk. I can tell you that there'll be a lot of investor pressure.
Okay, interesting point you've made. You believe that Twitter is ready for a reset, in your opinion. Ms. Napinai, now, after making this offer to buy Twitter for about 41 odd billion that he has quoted, now he's also said that if Twitter board does not accept this offer, then there is a plan B too. What does this mean? What does this development really mean for the employees of Twitter, for about 396 million users of Twitter, in your opinion?
Firstly, it appears that Elon Musk is attempting a hostile takeover. This statement that you're quoting also indicates the same. So any hostile takeover, be it, and this would be covered by US laws, Hina, and not by Indian laws. So if you look at the US laws also, a hostile takeover comes with strings attached, including with respect to competition laws. Therefore, whether he tries to do it through a buyout or a hostile takeover, whatever the applicable laws are will have to be complied with. And when we speak about applicable laws, those laws also mandate what is permissible and impermissible in the mode and manner of conduct of the takeover. Therefore, I would say that one, we don't look at it, I don't see it rather as something that's going to affect users or the employees. Twitter will stay on. It'll be like long live the king, right? It'll continue irrespective of who the owner is. With respect to what will be the contours of Twitter, if perchance the takeover were to take place, that becomes another issue. I've been hearing everybody talk about the free speech aspect of it, and I wonder, what free speech did Elon Musk not have till now? He has exercised it fair and square till date. I don't see it being ever really restricted in that sense. If he is talking about free speech for all users, he has to keep in mind that it doesn't matter who the king is in terms of a corporate entity. The sovereign nations and their laws will prevail. So whichever jurisdiction Twitter offers its services at, the laws of that sovereign nation will have to be complied with. For instance, Twitter is in India. India has laws with respect to free speech. It's a fundamental right. But this fundamental right in India comes with reasonable restrictions. And if Elon Musk were to offer or to pitch his threshold at a higher level in terms of free speech, in India, it will still have to be exercised with these reasonable restrictions. He can't assume that as a corporate entity, be it as an owner or a user, he cannot assume that he can violate laws of the land. He is still bound by the laws of the land. In fact, I would say more so as an owner than as a user.
Okay, interesting. Mahesh Murthy, now, as I mentioned earlier, that this has clearly triggered a debate on the issue of freedom of speech. You just heard Ms. Napinai about the issue of freedom of speech, free speech here. The laws are different. And, in the past, we have seen a lot about the way Twitter suddenly blocks somebody's accounts, the issue of trolling, bots, etc. If indeed Elon Musk manages to buy Twitter, because he seems to be quite confident, as he talked about a plan B, and the way he rejected the board seat as well in Twitter, if indeed he buys Twitter, for users, what do you see really changing? What can change for users, in your opinion?
So I think just to add a couple of points on this, I think the first thing is to understand that it is a public company, and when you make a a buyer offer for a public company, the board, given that it's a 30-40% premium over the last price, the board has to seriously consider it or find an alternative or explain to shareholders why they're giving up the upside, right? So there's going to be a lot of scared people on the board. Second, please understand, it's not a problem for this man to raise money. I do still maintain that it's a rounding error. He doesn't really care. He's not out there to make money on Twitter. It'll happen. Right, it will happen maybe a little slower, but it'll happen more clearly and purely when people say, "I'm simply going to pay for this." Much like eventually you pay for email, even though it starts off free, etc., and so on and so forth. And I think the bigger issue is the degree to which you are made to comply. To come with Napane's point, with rules and regulations. So, for example, in countries like India, various other countries, right? Twitter users have been banned. Police have visited, and so on and so forth. All of that has happened. When the company goes private, it has a greater ability to withstand that because there is no stock price pressure. There is no next quarter Q1, Q2, Q3 pressure. There's somebody who's underwritten it and said, "Do what is right," right? So it's not going to make the problem go away. It makes much easier at that point because if you're a public company, there are many more levers you can pull. But if you're a private company, like Telegram, there's not very much you can do. So Telegram is based out in Dubai. There's not too much that the world can do with Telegram. So, a lot of people have moved to Telegram and have moved to Signal. So you will see, I think, Twitter becoming more Telegram-like and more Signal-like in the sense of, relatively less wokeness, relatively less, make that person stop from speaking, relatively less censorship, both on the liberal and on the conservative sides, right? So I think, the nice thing to say is it's not just a right-wing move because Elon is the same guy who brought satellite internet to Ukraine while making sure that the Russian channels were not where he said, I was told to cut the Russian propaganda in Ukraine. I said, nothing doing. You're going to get it all, and I will give you satellite data as well. So that's a kind of absolutist principle. So it doesn't come from any particular wing of the spectrum. It just comes from a belief that this is the right thing to do. So I think people will see more tweets on the timeline. More, Twitter has been slow in development. We'll see more ways to find what they are looking for. We'll find more engagement. And also easier ways to block people. As far as the coveted, blue tick, I don't know. I mean, I'm one of the lucky few high caste people who apparently got it, and I don't even know it happened effortlessly. But it's one of those things that may come with, with easily defined norm or with payment. So I think that it's just going to become a simpler, cleaner thing. And than what it is today. It's for both the employees and for users. When it's a private company, you have much less problems because you can't be sued for many things.
Twice you've used the word that, with Musk taking over Twitter, the platform is going to become cleaner. So what's dirty right now, in your opinion, that needs to be cleaned immediately? Mahesh Murthy, that was for you.
I can come
Mahesh Murthy, can you hear me? Okay, I don't think Mahesh is able to hear me. Arvind wants to respond. Yes, Arvind.
A couple of things that, Napanai says local laws, of course, those are sacrosanct, and I have personally maintained it. India has maintained, many countries have maintained it. The democracies and their laws should take precedence. There is no disagreement. But there is an issue that he has also talked about, that there is a lack of transparency in the algorithms. He wants to make that change. And I think that's a very, very welcome thought, that how transparency should be there and what kind of transparency should exist. The platform should become absolutely, as I think Mahesh and I have said, that content neutrality should be there. There should be absolute neutrality. Let the local laws of the countries decide what should be followed. We've had a huge standoff of Twitter versus India, and then let the transparency be there in the algorithms. There should be no biases. There should be no, if I may say this, Mr. Jack Dorsey is no longer there. There should be no personal influence on the opinions or of your opinions on the nature, the way the platform functions. I think that can only happen if it really goes private. His plan is to take this private. It's actually not just a takeover. It's actually just go completely private, which basically means that he'll have a lot more authority, less pressure on the public markets to run this. So What I want to leave us with a thought is that I think Twitter suffers from a lot of biases, a lot of ethics issues, a lot of transparency and opaqueness issues. So I think those are the things that Elon, I look up to Elon to fix them. So that, and whether it goes into a paid model, freemium model, and all of that, those are things that will happen. Those are things that people, will pay for, and I think
Right.
not pay for. But I think the fundamental issues in the platform needs to be fixed.
Okay. Of course, it'll be interesting to see what happens because Twitter is still evaluating the offer that has been made by Elon Musk. Mahesh Murthy is back with us. Would you like to quickly respond to what I asked earlier? What are the things that you feel need to be changed? Because at least twice you used the word clean, that, you think that this platform needs to become cleaner. So what's dirty right now? Could you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I think by clean, I meant that if you have policies, they have to be open and transparent and declared. It was never clear why somebody was shadow banned on Twitter. It was never clear why somebody was blocked. It was never clear why some account was deleted. It was never clear which government ordered you to take something down. It was never clear why you took something down, right? Nobody knew. It was never clear what makes you get a blue check mark. It was never clear, right? So you don't know, right? And when you don't know, you have conspiracies and you have all of this stuff happening, saying, why is that happening? You try to see stories when they're not. By cleaning up, I'm saying once you have a simple policy saying, here's what happens and here's why it happens. Look, even think about it. Twitter is not all that much in revenue, right? And that valuation, I'll come back to say, for a guy who's at about $500 billion in market cap, in personal net worth, heading towards $1 trillion when SpaceX goes public, etc., Twitter will literally be chump change, right? It'll be probably 5%, 10% of his stake if he does get it, right? It's not, that valuation is not going to grow as much as SpaceX and the other ones grow. So for him, it's one way of saying that, look, he doesn't need any more publicity. He's far away. My 8-year-old knows who he is, and I'm sure most 6-year-olds know who he is. Tesla spends zero on advertising. SpaceX spends nothing on advertising. So I think that they don't need any more self-publicity. It's not a game, right? It's real money. 42 billion is real money. Right? He can put it up. Anybody will back him to do it. And I think the cleaning up is just simply a process of putting in place guidelines that everybody understands and everybody makes transparent. So there's currently you don't know what's happening on Twitter. A lot of stuff is just hidden below. I know people who've been blocked and I've written to them, I've gotten them unblocked and so on and so forth. I've gotten people back their blue ticks, but it's one of those mysterious kind of, fuzzy processes. By just making it clean and transparent and above board, it's going to become a better place if this happens. That's my two cents.
So you feel that it's currently in its form, it's mysterious, it lacks transparency, and that's something that could come if Elon Musk actually manages to take over Twitter. Now, let me go across to Professor Pal as well. Professor Pal, now Elon Musk has also said that he wanted to open up the black box of artificial intelligence technology driving Twitter's speed so that people would have more transparency about why some tweets might go viral and why others might disappear. Do you think it's an interesting idea? And, the way the number of suggestions, in fact, that Elon Musk has already put out on Twitter about revamping Twitter have the potential of bringing in transparency that, the users are looking for now?
Sure. I mean, there will be some benefits with going open source in some sense, but there's already people who very effectively game the Twitter algorithms. You can see, for instance, Baba Ram Rahim and Sushant Singh Rajput are still consistently trending. So they're obviously game the system. What I don't understand from both of the earlier speakers is why they think something that is publicly traded and looked over by several shareholders is going to be less open than something which is owned by an individual. Like, what is it to say that over time, Elon Musk will not take this to his own end goals or whatever that may be. And the platforms which have historically been extremely open, examples being 4chan, which became 8chan, which became 8kun, when you have completely open speech, then eventually those platforms go out of business because they become toxic places for people to be in. And nobody wants to be in those places. Truth Social has done nothing, for instance. Nobody wants to get on that platform. So Twitter is actually fairly effective. Sure, it has its problems. And Elon Musk has never run a social media company. And that's a different beast altogether. To imagine that just because he's a maverick and he's done something very well with one sector of the industry, he'll be able to equally do well in another. Why do you believe that? And why do you believe that that he's free of influence if he's worth a lot of money? He still has to sell Tesla in the company that you're in. So there are other things that are tied to the person that you still need to be wary of when he shakes
I think those are some very pertinent points you have raised, Professor Pal. Mahesh Murthy wanted to respond to what you said. Go ahead.
So I think, am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible? Can you hear me? Yeah. So, I think the simple answer to the first question is, look, if he's going to drive Twitter to zero, that's fine. It's his company. He can do whatever it is because he doesn't owe his paid shareholders this full due. He can do whatever he wants with it, right? He owns it. That's perfectly fine. So the second thing is this entire assumption that, a publicly owned company is necessarily better than a privately owned company. I think most people would, many people would disagree. You go public and then at some point you wish you didn't have the things that hold you back. At those points, you keep those companies private, correct? If you're a public limited company, obviously, as somebody who's taken a few companies public, you really fall into all kinds of rules and regulations. I don't necessarily think all of them are good. And if somebody has the financial wherewithal to say, look, there's a cost to being public, there's a benefit of being public, I am willing to pay the cost and not have the benefit and to do what is right, well, that's their power. There's nothing wrong. It's perfectly fine and perfectly ethical and moral and legal to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. The other thing is, we think, I think what Professor was saying that I seem to think that he thought that Twitter was owned by the people. It's not. It's owned by a company, and that company can do what it wants with it, right? And if it does something wrong by users, well, it won't do well. If it does something right by users, it will grow, right? So I don't understand this emotional hand-wringing about, oh my God, he's going to wreck Twitter. It was never yours.
It was oversight by a larger pool of people than one person.
Oversight, well, that's fine. And if one person says, I don't want that oversight, here's the money, it's now my oversight. That's the way the world works. It's perfectly fine.
And to add to that, actually...
okay, interesting comments have already come. Okay, Ms. Napin, I also wanted to come in and I want to understand, we've discussed a little bit about how it's going to impact the users. What can users really expect if indeed Elon Musk manages to take over Twitter, and if indeed it's a hostile takeover, as he's been quite vocal about the plan B as well, that's also ready simultaneously. What happens to the employees of Twitter, Ms. Napinai, if it is a hostile takeover, if the Twitter board declines the best and the final offer by Elon Musk?
Now, there were two things I wanted to come in this. The first aspect of it is there has been a lot of talk about how it may be better if Twitter goes into the private limited company more mold as instead of being a public company. I just wanted to clarify that whether you're a public company or a private company, the differences in terms of compliances is with respect to corporate compliances. But when it comes to the user interface, when it comes to the users, the compliances that are user-facing, it doesn't change whether you're a private or a public company. Just to give you an example, under Indian laws, there are certain compliances that every social media platform or a microblogging platform like Twitter has to comply with as an intermediary. Those compliances do not change merely because you're a private or a public company. So I just wanted to bring that delineation, because in all this debate, otherwise we are tending to forget that these are two separate issues and one aspect of it really doesn't impact the other. And that brings me to the second part of your question. In what is it that we can expect? The immediate thought that came to my mind when you talked about a clean or a better Twitter is that today Twitter has, unfortunately, the tagline of being a toxic Twitter. We talk about, on one hand, free speech, we have touched upon it, but we need to also touch upon the fact that Twitter has been a platform which has been used extensively by trolls, and a lot of bullying and harassing, etc. happens. So when we talk about a cleaner Twitter, are we talking about a more transparent Twitter, the way Mahesh was probably indicating? Or are we talking about a cleaner Twitter which will have less crimes being committed on it? And if we are talking about the latter, which I'm talking about, which is that less crimes will be committed on Twitter, then how does Elon Musk propose to do that? How does he propose to use AI? And that is something I've been batting for a long time, that AI can be used as a tool to clean up social media platforms of toxic content. So is it something that he's speaking about of cleaning up, which I suspect may not necessarily be the case, but it's just something that he definitely, or whoever is in charge of Twitter, needs to take note of and needs to implement. So as a user, as people who are really, we understand the power of Twitter. We fully appreciate the fact that we need it and we want it. But it does come with strings. Who is pulling the strings is what counts. Is it going to be the corporate entity, which has been happening substantially? Is it going to be the government through compliances? Or are users going to have more freedom? And is that freedom going to be used correctly, legally, and fairly? Is the questions that we are really faced with right now.
I want to give the last word now to Arvind Gupta on the issue of the usage of artificial intelligence so that there is more transparency. At least for the moment, he's spoken about transparency, about why some tweets might go viral while others might disappear. Do you think it'll be interesting if it is used in the manner Elon Musk is talking about the issue of free speech?
So let me give two perspectives quickly. One is that I think Napanayev mentions a point about the users and the user feedback. Elon Musk is one of those few people who actually at his level interact a lot with users. You'll see him replying, interacting, using Twitter to its fullest extent possible. So I see that to be something, that he extends Twitter, takes a lot of feedback from users, and that's probably a good sign for going forward from a user feedback perspective. Second thing is that Jack Dorsey was building two companies simultaneously, which many people probably don't realize. One was Twitter, and the other was Square, which is a fintech company. With all due respect to Jack, and somebody said that Professor Pal said that what is the experience of Elon Musk? I think you just asked the right question. He has great experience in AI. I mean, who better than him? One of the best top minds in using tech, AI. That's what he's building in his Tesla cars, and it's the whole autonomous vehicle platform. So I think there is a lot of potential in the commonalities of algorithms, and I won't get into the technology of it, that can be applied to bringing out more transparency, making AI to clean up, as Napanay says, a lot of things that probably are not so transparent right now, or are the bad things on Twitter, the toxicity on Twitter. And I think we need, finally, at the end of the day, we need a lot more of AI. We need a lot more of technology. And I think Elon Musk has, with his ideas, with his innovation mindset, brings that to the table. Apart from his money, by the way. So.
Interesting. Absolutely. And he's already started suggesting a lot of changes he would like to see if he indeed takes over Twitter. In fact, I was just going through some of his old tweets, and one of them had a list of people who've got maximum number of followers. And he's in fact highlighted the fact that most of them have not even tweeted in months. Many have only put out 1 or 2 tweets in last 1 year. So maybe that's going to be something that he's also going to be really focusing on that if people are not tweeting, then something should be done about it. So interesting days ahead as far as Twitter users are concerned. We'll see what happens in this case next. I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening and sharing with us your perspective on this biggest story that the world today is talking about. Let me once again go back to my colleague Raksha, who is joining us. Raksha, you just heard what the guest had to say about, what this takeover, if it actually happens, could mean for users as well as employees. But what would it mean for other social media platforms? How are they viewing this development?
Thanks for that, Hina. Yes, that is a big challenge. In fact, it's also a big opportunity. Of course, they are saying that, Musk is saying that this is going to be a free-for-all platform and freedom of speech and everything. But there is going to be a big shift in Jack's Twitter version versus Musk's Twitter version 2.0. So we are only going to have to see whether the users are going to migrate to other platforms such as more of Facebook or Instagram or Reddit or any other social media platform. We also need to look at whether Twitter's nemesis ultimately was the fact that it could not manage, it was incapable in managing the troll armies, which became a big aspect of toxicity, as a lot of our guests on the show pointed out. Will it drive people away to other platforms, or will it make Twitter actually the free space platform that Musk wants it to be? Those are a few things that we need to see. Musk had also earlier tweeted once in 2018 saying that he lost about 20,000 followers over the past few days. So he believes that Twitter was doing a cleanup, but as has been evident in his past few tweets over the years, that he does want a bigger cleanup and a freer space to have conversations. But whether or not this will drive some users away is something we will have to wait and watch. But thanks for that, Hina. Back to you.
Right. Thank you very much, Raksha, for putting things in perspective for our viewers.